From Quito, Ecuador, this is from the South, teleSUR English's Daily News Brief. My name is Soini Gray. We begin in Mexico, where another natural disaster has claimed lives. Mexico was hit overnight by its most powerful earthquake in 100 years. 8.2 on the Richter scale, it struck off the coast of the state of Chiapas. More than 30 people have been killed, with at least another 200 people injured. But those numbers have been fluctuating all day and may rise further. Dozens of aftershocks have been recorded. An evacuation has begun of the entire population of the island of Barbuda after Hurricane Irma destroyed more than 90% of the buildings there. A Venezuelan military aircraft began to fly the first group of 120 residents from Barbuda to Antigua. It's part of a solidarity mission sent by the Venezuelan government, with 10 tons of relief supplies and 34 emergency personnel. A second Category 4 hurricane, Jose, is now bearing down on Barbuda and other islands in the northeastern Caribbean. 400 residents left the island by boat on Thursday, leaving 1,400 others still to leave. The Antiguan and Barbuda Minister of Tourism, ASOT Michael, highlighted that Venezuela was the first country to respond to Barbuda's crisis.
It shows the true solidarity between two countries, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And I'm humbled by this evening, and on behalf of Prime Minister Gaston Brown, the government and the people of Antigua and Barbuda, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks and appreciation to President Maduro and the people and the government of Venezuela for being the first country to respond to our crisis in our sister island Barbuda, and to land these two planes with assistance, with relief aid, with the friendship, the love of the people of Venezuela, to come in a time of crisis to help out the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And truly, it's a very touching moment. It's very historical. It's living the legacy of President Chavez, living the legacy of the father of the nation of Antigua and Barbuda, the late Sir Vere Cornwall Byrd Sr., and showing that two countries, the fraternal, the close, the bonds of friendship, forging together to show to the entire world that what is true friendship, what is true meaning in terms of what is friendship between two countries.
Hurricane Irma also seriously damaged infrastructure on St. Martin, leaving the Dutch territory in a total blackout, according to the island's Prime Minister. Emergency aid had slowly begun arriving earlier on Friday, with a plane loaded with supplies along with a Navy ship. Prime Minister William Martin said that schools and houses were destroyed and storage capacity in water tanks had been reduced by half. The Netherlands government also sent troops to quell what it called looting.
The island is on a total blackout. Water tanks have imploded. We have lost 5 of our 12 water tanks, which is about half of our storage capacity. So even if we start to make water again, we will not be able to distribute to about half of our location.
Hurricane Irma later weakened slightly to a Category 4 storm as it battered the northern coast of Cuba and headed towards Florida. However, Cuba's hurricane preparedness measures combined a comprehensive national and local emergency response plan, as well as education about disaster protection. Compared to the limited financial resources available on the island, Cuba's hurricane and tropical storm protection measures are second to none. Now to the United States, where Floridians prepared for a possible hit by Hurricane Irma by stocking up on sandbags to help prevent damage by the Category 4 storm. Florida Governor Rick Scott has warned that all of the state's 20 million inhabitants should be prepared to evacuate. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has issued new economic measures to boost the nation's finances. Maduro made the announcement at a special presentation before the country's National Constituent Assembly. He said the key measure will be known as Plan 50, and it will establish new rules in terms of prices for 50 basic goods and services, as well as new mechanisms of supervision and control to ensure that these prices are applied. And as Pope Francis continues his visit to Colombia, Rodrigo Londoño, alias Timochenko, leader of the Revolutionary Alternative Forces of the Commons, or FARC, publicly announced his deep regard for Pope Francis and the minister's mission for peace around the world. Londoño said in a public letter that the Pope's 3-day visit is a historical moment for Colombia. In the text, the leader of the former guerrilla group also asks for forgiveness and says his organization had only ever fought to achieve justice for the excluded and those persecuted in Colombia. The outrage over the violence against the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar continues. We head to Pakistan, where thousands of protesters took to the streets to condemn the crackdowns. Protests took place in major cities across the country, where many of the demonstrators carried placards saying shame on Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the de facto leader of Myanmar. A senior United Nations representative told AFP that more than 1,000 people may already have been killed in the military-led crackdown. Solidarity with the Rohingya Muslims is being expressed in different parts of the Muslim world. For example, in Palestine, where a Scholars Association protested and issued a statement against these recent atrocities. Our correspondent Noor Hazrazin has more from the Gaza Strip.
The Palestine Scholars Association in the Gaza Strip on Wednesday protested against the persecution of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. The association's head, Dr. Marwan Aburas, delivered a press conference in which he called the Buddhists to commit collective atrocities against this minority war crimes.
We request the nations of the world to deal with these Buddhist militias as war criminals who are committing atrocities and crimes against humanity, and they are carrying out genocide against Muslims before the whole world without shame or fear.
Nearly 90,000 Rohingya people fled to neighboring Bangladesh since the Myanmar military launched a bloody crackdown on the Rohingya community in late August after police outspots and an army base were attacked. The government of Myanmar claims that Rohingya fighters were behind those attacks. In response, security forces supported by Buddhist militias carried out a clearance operation against the Rohingya population. Massacres occurred in villages and thousands of people were reportedly killed, burned or tortured. About 1.1 million Rohingya people live in Myanmar's Rakhine state, where they have struggled to coexist alongside Buddhists for ages and have predominantly suffered systemic discrimination. Nuharazin Husu TV, Gaza.
With Pope Francis continuing his trip through Colombia to promote the country's peace process, we take a look at other prominent figures from Latin America's clergy who are remembered for their sacrifices in the name of peace and justice. A number of Latin American and Caribbean priests identified with Liberation Theology School, which was based on an interpretation of Christianity as being on the side of the poor and oppressed. In Colombia, Father Camilo Torres Restrepo joined the ELN guerrilla group and was killed while fighting Colombian forces. Gustavo Gutierrez of Peru is considered the founder of Liberation Theology, where he received a number of awards for his work. El Salvador's Archbishop Oscar Romero was assassinated during Mass after speaking out against state atrocities during that country's civil war. Remember, you can update yourself on the day's top stories via social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. For TeleSUR English, I'm Sweeney Gray.